After supporting my family for years, my parents kept saying, "We have big plans for you." My father would always smile when I asked. "Just wait," he said kindly. On the day they promised, I found the house empty. "I really miss hearing from you." I saw a photo on Facebook a few hours later. I was so excited to see my parents and sister at my dream college's graduation. My lovely sister wrote, "He'll just keep working anyway." Lol. I didn't say anything. I didn't call. I just watched. 3 days on, I received a deluge of 38 heartfelt messages from people who really needed me. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really hope you're having a lovely day, wherever you are. I'd absolutely love it if you could share in the comments which city or country you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let's begin our story together, and I'll do my best to make it a happy one. The silence in my apartment at 2:15 a.m. wasn't just quiet, it was so comforting. It was heavy, thick with the weight of 3 days of unread messages, 38 of them. Maybe more by now, flooding my phone from the people I'd spent the last 8 years holding afloat. My fingers closed gently around the cool metal of the phone. The screen was like a window into a nightmare I was still trying to process. The streetlights outside cast long, ghostly shadows into the room, mirroring the emptiness that had settled inside me. It felt like my heart had been taken from my body and left on the cold floor, all exposed and vulnerable. I hadn't stepped up for 8 years, you know. I was just 22 years old and still finding my feet when my dear old dad lost his job. I'm sorry to say that Mom's health wasn't great. I know how it is when bills keep piling up. I remember how I felt when my family home was at risk. The place where I grew up with its creaky stairs and the comforting, old-fashioned smell of my mom's potpourri. There wasn't a big family meeting or any kind of dramatic plea. It just happened, and I'm so glad it did. I was doing really well in my job and was even able to send some money back home. At first, it was just a little help, but then it turned into covering the mortgage. Then the utilities, groceries, and car payments. Before I knew it, a big chunk of my paycheck was going from my account to theirs. My own life suddenly stopped. Don't worry about saving for a down payment just yet. Don't worry about traveling. Don't even think about going back to school just yet. I had always just known, deep down, that I wanted to go to Northwood University. It was more than just a school. It was where my grandfather went, where my dad could have gone. It felt like a family legacy, a place where serious people went to build serious lives. I just loved the idea of me walking those hallowed halls, maybe even graduating from their business program. But that dream got put on the back burner while I worked double shifts, sometimes 60 hours a week or more, at 2 different jobs. The first few years were all about just getting by, you know? Ramen noodles were a staple. My clothes were pretty worn out, and going out usually meant staying late at the office or picking up another graveyard shift. Every extra hour felt like adding another brick to a wall that wasn't even mine. It was like a wall that held their life together while mine remained stagnant. They weren't exactly demanding, you know? Don't worry, it's not as bad as it seems. You might not have expected it at first, but it will get easier. It just sort of became the norm, you know? My phone would gently ping with a text, letting me know that the electric bill was due. The car needed a little attention, or groceries were a bit higher than usual this week. And I sent the money every time because, as I'm sure you'll agree, that's what you do for family, right? That's what a good son does, right? My younger sister Emma was a real star in college, and I was so proud of her. She didn't need to work part-time because I was able to support her with money, and she did really well. Last semester, her tuition bill spiked, which was a bit of a shock, $1,200. I really struggled to write that check. I'm saving into my own little savings account, which I've called the Northwood Fund, because I'm so optimistic. It was a bit of a shock, but Emma really needed it, they said, for her future, for the family. I gave it a try anyway. Things have been a bit different for a couple of months now. I was over the moon when my company announced a promotion. It was a huge step up for me. More money, better hours, more responsibility. I was so excited. At last, I feel like I can start thinking about my own future again. I'm dusting off that Northwood dream, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. But when I told my parents, they didn't seem too excited, which was a bit strange for them. They'd exchange quick, worried glances, and it was clear they were both thinking about the same thing. If I happened to bring up the promotion or what I could do with the extra income, he would change the subject right away. "Oh, look at the time!" Or maybe, "You heard about a distant relative?" It was a bit unnerving, but that's only because it was so unexpected. Then came the hints, the little conversations I overheard, the ones that made my heart flutter. My father, who doesn't usually say much, started being warm and loving. He'd give me a warm smile when he mentioned my promotion, put a hand on my shoulder, something he hadn't done in years. "We have some really exciting plans for you," he'd say, his eyes lighting up with a warm smile. When I asked him about it, he just smiled even wider. "Just wait," he'd tease, playfully. The lovely Emma also joined in. She'd give me these knowing, almost smug smiles and say things like, "You're going to love what's coming." Trust me, I was just as confused as you would be in that situation. But then, just as things were starting to look a bit bleak, there was a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was it. I really hoped after all this time that they would finally see how much I have sacrificed. Maybe the big plans were related to my future, maybe even helping me finally go to Northwood or helping with a down payment on my own place. I felt a little unsure, and I remembered how I had put myself last for so many years. I really, really wanted to believe in the music of finally, they see me. I put that feeling to one side, excited for the day they promised everything would be revealed. I spent that morning feeling a nervous flutter in my stomach, a mix of hopeful anticipation and a carefully suppressed anxiety. Ready for what was to come. Let me know if you'd like me to add some extra narration touches, like pauses or emphasized words, to make it even more voice-over friendly. What I believed would be validation and a celebration of my own progress, the day they promised everything would be revealed finally arrived. It was bathed in the kind of bright, innocent sunlight that, with hindsight, felt cruel. I drove over to the house, the one I'd been financing for years, my heart beating faster with excitement. What would it be? A surprise party? I was so happy to hear the news about the scholarship they'd helped me get. I'd gotten my own set of keys to a new place, and I was so excited to get started. I strolled up the well-known path, passing the rose bush that my dear Mom always pampered. The house looked normal and quiet, which was nice. I tried the front door, but it didn't work. Thank goodness it was unlocked. "Hello," I greeted, stepping inside. Silence. A heavy, unnatural silence. "Mom? Dad? Emma?" My voice echoed eerily in the hallway. The air felt still and quiet, as if there was a little bit of something missing, but I wasn't quite sure what. The faint, comforting smell of old potpourri was there, but it felt stale and lifeless. I strolled down the stairs, the room's empty. There was no sign of anyone. There was no car in the driveway, and the kitchen counter, unusually spotless, was empty too. I started to feel a bit uneasy. A cold knot tightened in my gut. I got out my phone and called my mom, then my dad, and then Emma. Don't worry, everything went straight to voicemail. I sent some friendly texts. I didn't get a reply. Where were they? Was there an emergency? I couldn't help wondering why they didn't call me of all people. I waited, and waited, and waited some more. The hours went by in a blur. The bright afternoon sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows. The house felt increasingly foreign, as if the very essence of familiarity had been replaced by something new and unknown. It was a beautiful cage, and I was still paying for it. The silence was so thick you could almost feel it pressing down on you. The knot of dread grew even tighter. Had I misunderstood the day? The time? My mind raced through possibilities. I'm sorry, but none of them were good. I know it might sound silly, but I just don't think it feels right to be deliberately shut out, even if it's just for a little surprise. After everything, as darkness fully fell, wrapping the empty house in a shroud, I retreated to my own cozy little apartment. I sat on my well-loved couch, the silence here just as heavy as in the house. I think it was heavier because I chose to stay silent, but I'm not sure. I was confused, and I was growing more and more afraid. I scrolled through my social media on my phone, as I often do, looking for any distraction, any sign. Then I saw it. A photo posted by Emma just a few hours ago. My breath caught in my throat. I was so excited, but then the screen froze in my hand. It was my parents and Emma, standing together, beaming. They were all dressed up in their best formal clothes. Emma was there in a graduation cap and gown. And if you look behind them, you'll see the iconic archway of Northwood University. Standing tall and proud, the caption confirmed the sad truth. I am so proud of my family for celebrating my graduation today with me. And guess what? Thanks to my wonderful parents, who have always supported me, I'm so excited to start grad school here in the fall. Dream big hashtag, family first hashtag, graduation day hashtag, hard work pays off me vision blurred. Northwood, my dream university. Graduation. An event I hadn't been invited to, wasn't told about, while I sat waiting in an empty house. My parents, who had smiled and hinted about big plans for me, were celebrating her graduation at my dream school, funding her future with the money I had sacrificed my own future to earn. The hashtag hard work pays off felt like a punch to the gut. It was a cruel joke, especially since it was from the very person whose tuition I'd struggled to pay. Then I saw one of Emma's replies to a comment. Oh my goodness, yes, it really is just amazing. And Mark will just keep working anyway, which is really great of him. Oh well. The phone slipped from my shaking fingers and hit the floor with a little oomph. The sound seemed really loud, especially as there was no noise at all. My chest felt tight, as if someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. It wasn't just a missing photo, it was a missing piece of the puzzle. It was being erased from their reality. I was standing on the outside looking in at a life I had helped build, and they were celebrating a dream I had stolen from them. I promise it wasn't an oversight, it was a calculated exclusion. But that's okay. The big plans weren't for me, but that's okay. They were for Emma, funded by me and celebrated without me, at the one place that held my deferred hope. In that moment, all the confusion and fear just melted away. What was left was a clear sense of calm. It's been 8 years now, and in that time, we've all put in some really long hours. Up to 60 hours a week sometimes. We've all had to give up some of our holidays, and our things have got worn out from being used so much. Every penny we earn goes into paying for our work. It wasn't seen as love or sacrifice, but that's okay. We all make mistakes. It was a way of investing in Emma's future with me, so she could have the best of both worlds. I felt a deep, peaceful quiet wash over me. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't comment on the photo. There was nothing to say, and I totally get that they wouldn't understand anyway. I just sat there in the quiet, and I noticed that the silence felt different. It wasn't empty, it was intentional. I just watched their perfect smiling faces on the cracked screen. I couldn't help but notice the look of betrayal on their faces. I was at a loss as to what to do, but I was absolutely certain that I wasn't going to be the good son who just keeps working anyway. I kept quiet for 3 whole days. Not a word. My phone was on the counter. It was a black mirror, and it showed how I was feeling. I felt very determined. The initial shock was soon replaced by a deep, simmering anger. I went back and listened to all our conversations again, and it was so obvious that there had been lies, manipulations, and subtle changes over the years. I had chosen to ignore all this because I really wanted to believe in the idea of family. I'll never forget the way they smiled when they asked for money. I was always so grateful when people casually mentioned a bill I needed to cover. I could really relate to them when they dismissed my own struggles because it made everything click into place for me. It's a bit of a worrying mix of thinking only of yourself. On the afternoon of the third day, the phone started buzzing. The first message was from my lovely mum. "Hey, sweetheart, you sound a bit under the weather. Are you okay? We haven't heard from you, but we're sure everything is fine." A few hours later, Dad. "Hey, sweetie, is something the matter? Give us a ring." At first, they were a little hesitant, just the slightest hint of worry from their parents. But then they got a bit annoyed. "I'm sure you'll have your reasons, but I'm just wondering why you're not answering. This isn't like you at all. Hey, we know things have been a bit crazy, but we really need to talk." Then, as you can imagine, the panic began to set in. The messages became more urgent, more demanding. "Hey, I totally get it, but I really need to talk now. It's really important. I'm sorry, but I don't think this is funny." And finally, the desperation. My phone was lit up with so many text and voicemail messages from my family. The number of unread messages climbed. 15, 20, 30, 38. They weren't asking if I was okay anymore, and I really missed that. They were begging, pleading, demanding, "Please give us a ring again, son. It's urgent. The mortgage payment was due yesterday, but don't worry, we're here to help. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I understand why you didn't send the money. I'm sorry to hear that Dad's credit card payment bounced because you didn't transfer it like you usually do. I totally understand. Emma, but you do need to get the rest of your graduate school deposit in this week. You promised you wouldn't let us down, didn't you? We're in a bit of a pickle, aren't we? I really want to reassure you that this is serious. Hey, just a friendly reminder that if you need us, we're always here for you. And we'll be there to help." Their panic was a stark contrast to the triumphant graduation photos. Reading their desperate pleas, I felt a grim satisfaction, cold and hard, but this wasn't about my feelings anymore. It was all about their immediate, urgent need. I know it was a mistake to withdraw the financial support they thought they were entitled to because it created a need. I'm sorry if I haven't said much recently, but I've been trying to use my silence as a way to help. I didn't respond right away, but I was thinking about it. I took a deep, long breath, the kind of breath I hadn't felt for days. My mind felt so clear. I promise you, this wasn't me trying to get you to do something I didn't think was right. It was all part of a grand plan. I really wanted to help them out because they needed the money I always provided for them. But they were facing a real imminent crisis, even though there wasn't any money there. I'm so happy to say that the years of putting myself last have ended. I decided to do something next, and I'm sorry to say it wasn't because I was angry. I just felt like I had to do something to make things fair and to keep myself safe. I got in touch with a really great lawyer, Miss Elena Ramirez, who specializes in all things money-related for families. She was as sharp as a tack and didn't flinch when I laid out the whole messy story for her. I told her about the years of support, the deferred dreams, the graduation betrayal, and the sudden barrage of desperate messages. "This is a clear pattern of financial exploitation and emotional abuse," she stated calmly, validating what I had only just begun to articulate to myself. She explained my options, cutting off support, trying to get back some of the money I'd put in, or using the leverage I'd got to set some boundaries and protect myself legally in the future. I'm so excited to be working with Miss Ramirez. We started collecting all the paperwork, bank statements showing every transfer, every bill that was paid on their behalf. Emails and texts where they'd asked for money, talked about the house, or made vague promises about my future. It was like doing a financial autopsy of my lost years, but in a really positive way. Then, while having a little look through some old emails I'd saved, I found something really important. It was an email chain between my parents from about a year ago, forwarded to Emma apparently by accident, and then buried in my inbox after she'd quickly tried to recall it. It wasn't just about the graduation, you know. It laid out their plan in a way that was easy for everyone to understand. They were thinking, maybe we could sell the house I was paying the mortgage on after Emma finished her undergraduate degree. Then they could use the profits to fund her graduate school tuition at Northwood. And then they could set themselves up comfortably. At the same time, I could transition my ongoing financial support from the mortgage to their living expenses and Emma's future needs. The graduation celebration at Northwood was timed perfectly to coincide with Emma's acceptance there for grad school, which is just wonderful. I was so happy when I heard about their success, especially since I had helped to fund it. But I was a bit upset because they didn't include me in the asset that I had been helping to maintain. The email was very clear that they would need me to continue supporting them financially until the house sale went through and they were settled. They also gently suggested that my own dreams about Northwood might not be realistic. "He'll just keep going, he's such a trooper." My dear mom had written something that echoed Emma's cruel caption. It wasn't a sudden act of meanness, I promise. It was a plan for betrayal that had been carefully thought through over a long period of time. I had some really compelling evidence, and I was joined by Miss Ramirez's counsel. We all met up in a neutral conference room, and Miss Ramirez was there too. The atmosphere was so charged, you could cut it with a knife. They came in, and I could see they were worried. They gave me a hug and asked why I hadn't been paying attention to them. "We were really worried," Mom said, though her eyes darted nervously to Miss Ramirez. Their masks were still firmly in place. "It was a surprise graduation trip," Dad said, trying a dismissive chuckle. "We really didn't want to bother you. I'm sure you wouldn't have liked it, all those people you didn't know." "Don't worry, you're overreacting." Emma joined in, and it was lovely to hear her voice. Her earlier panic had been replaced by a familiar entitled annoyance. "It's just a photo after all." "Hey, I just wanted to ask, are you feeling a bit overwhelmed?" Their attempts at gaslighting were totally pathetic now that I had the truth. I didn't raise my voice, of course. I promise I didn't get angry. I just laid out the facts, calm and steady. I showed them the bank statements, the endless stream of money. I showed them the graduation photo, and they were so proud. And then I gently slid the email chain across the table. Their faces went white as they read. The carefully constructed facade crumbled. I felt their denials were a little weak, but I understand they must have been very worried. I really feel for them. Their justifications were so pathetic. "It was just an idea, but I'm happy to talk about it with you. We didn't mean it like that, we promise." They were a little nervous, their eyes showing how much they were worried as they realized how much they had exposed. "You planned this?" I said, in a quiet but firm voice. "You plan to use me, sell the house I helped pay for, fund Emma's future at the expense of my own dreams, and discard me when I was no longer convenient. I know you're all really excited about the big plans, but I'm afraid they weren't for me. I understand that the plans were to let me go once you'd got the most you could out of me." Their mask cracked completely, their eyes flashed with anger, and it was clear they were hurt. Mom let out a little yelp. "After everything we did for you." Dad's face showed how angry he was. "Oh dear, you naughty child, we gave you life, and we love you." Emma looked a little upset. Poor little princess, she was so used to being pampered, and now she's seeing the gravy train grinding to a halt. It was in that moment, just as they were about to unleash the full force of their wrath and gaslighting, that the door opened. It was Aunt Carol, my father's sister, who had always seemed quiet and stayed out of family drama. She walked in, holding her phone. She had a real connection with the outside world, and she was definitely not just cracked, it was shattered. Exposed by someone they never expected. It was such a heartwarming moment, a true embodiment of justice. I got up. "I'm done," I said, looking them each in the eye. "I'm done being your bank account, your safety net, your backup plan." I'm sure I'm not the only one who'd like to be treated like a person, not an ATM that just keeps going. I'm afraid I can't provide financial support for anything at the moment. Miss Ramirez will be in touch about how we can work out how to get my contributions back. Family friends started calling, pressuring me, repeating the narrative my parents had fed them. Family is everything, one uncle told me. It's not fair to just turn your back on people who are struggling. It was painful, but we all have to face our fears sometime, don't we? It felt like grieving the loss of people who were still alive, but who had died to me. It was really tough having to face the fact that so many people only saw the mask my parents wore, or just didn't want to get involved. But every time I had to be strong and say, in a nice way, that I was protecting myself from any possible exploitation. The goal wasn't revenge. It was so important to stop the bleeding and establish clear legal boundaries. It was a bit of a slow process, and it cost a lot of money. But that was to be expected when you're trying to untangle yourself from years of financial investment. My life began to change slowly, but in a good way. The money that was going out now went into my savings instead. I started small, just building an emergency fund, and it's so rewarding to see those savings grow. It was such a lovely feeling the first time in years that I felt a tiny cushion beneath me. I could see that my parents were really worried about their next financial demand, and this made me realize that their long-standing patterns were understandable. These bonds, built on mutual respect and care, felt like the family I had always wished for, much more than the one I was born into. A simple act of kindness from a friend felt more like true family than years of financial support ever felt like love from my parents. Healing wasn't linear, you know? There were days when the anger came rushing back, or the sadness over the lost idea of a loving family was just too much to bear. I know it's hard, but seeing photos of them just isn't the same as actually seeing them. It was like a light switch went off for me, you know? Like it was the push I needed to face the truth, even if it was painful, and just go for it. It was a big expense, but it was worth it. I know it was really tough when I lost the family I thought I had, and going through all those legal battles and dealing with the emotional scars, but I can tell you that it was so worth it. I'm going to start reclaiming my self-respect, building a life based on healthy boundaries, and finally being free. It's a beautiful thing, this peace. It's built on the rubble of what was broken before, and it's strong and resilient.